and welcome to this webinar about the key changes to the ISO 27002 standard. Thank you all for taking time out to being here with us today. My name is Paula Costa. I'm a Global Technical Manager for Information Security with SGS, original from Portugal, and but living in the UK for the last 7 years. I have the pleasure to be hosting this webinar and having an excellent panel of global colleagues in almost every continent to be here with us today. And I think our main objective, as in my situation and for all of us, in the last few months, we've been discussing this issue, what has changed with 2702, a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, a lot of what should we do next. This webinar is our approach to share with you what we've discovered, what we've were able to find out, and what we think will be the next steps. We'll be running a live Q&A at the end of the presentation. So please feel free to pop your questions in the Q&A box. If you miss anything, don't worry. We are recording this webinar, and it will be available to be seen on demand. There will also be a white paper available to download, but my colleagues will talk about this a little bit later. And as I've mentioned, we have fantastic speakers today. The first presentation will be done by Khawaja Faisal Javed, our Senior Manager Operations and ICT Products from Pakistan. Faisal has a huge experience in ICT governance, IT, IS auditing, business continuity, more than 200 audits in 50 countries, 5 continents, a lead auditor for 9001, 27001, and many other ICT-related standards in large organizations, different sectors, different frameworks and regulations. Faisal is a known speaker in a number of international events and all various prestigious certifications. In our panel, that will help us to reply to your questions, we'll be having Chris Yao, our Deputy Director, Products and Service Development from Hong Kong. Again, someone with a lot of experience, lot to share with us about new standards, training, and what is going on in the Asia-Pacific region. Also a qualified auditor for ICT standards, and be able to cover, again, several organizations, several sectors. And last but not least, Willy Fabricius. Willy is our Global Head of Strategy and Business Development in America. It's again started as an auditor, as many of us, with 9001, but his background as from computer science, and obviously easily moved to the ICT standards, and has been conducting thousands of audits for 9001, 27, CC Star, 27701. Willy worked for several global certification bodies and delivered audits in APEC, Africa, Europe, Americas. Also a well-known speaker, and he represents us in one of the ISO committees. So a lot of experience together, and we hope that we've got time to help you with all your questions, and we'll be available for you later. But let's start with what is really important. So Faisal, back to you, so we can start our webinar.
Thank you very much, Paula. I hope you can hear me very clearly. So good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, because this is, I know you are located in different areas in the part of the world. So we welcome you all to join this webinar. As Paula has explained, that the purpose is very clear. We are going to explain the changes in the 27002, the new version, long awaited new version. It took 9 years to revise. The last version was in 2013. And then we will see what are the changes, what is coming up, and what needs to be done to do for the 27001 certifications, and how 27001 will be amended. As you are all aware, these are the two parts of the standard. Part 1, 27001 is a certifiable one, and 27002 is the guideline to implement the controls in 27001. Then I will try to cover how to prepare for the transition, the main questions people will be having in their minds, and you are asking to many people. So we will try to answer that. And most importantly, at the end of the session, we will have a panel discussion and the Q&A. We will try to answer most of your questions. Okay, let's start the proceeding with the poll. I need to get some idea that how many of you have been using 27002 as a reference or as a guidance in implementing your information security management system. So you can choose yes or no and submit your answers. So I leave it to you for 15 to 20 seconds. Good, the percentage is going good. Okay. Last 5 seconds, please try to answer as many as possible. Let me start the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let's see the results of the poll. All right, that's great. 68% of the people have used 27002, or they are aware what this standard is. That's good. That's quite a good percentage of the people. So we have the most relevant people attending this webinar, I must say. And those who have not seen it, not used it, it will be a very good reference for them if they are planning to implement information security management system in their organizations. So let's see, what are the areas and what are the differences between these two standards? As already I have explained, the 27001 is the standard which is certifiable, which sets the requirements with the shall, that all the areas which needs to be implemented by the organization, they are mandatory requirements are mentioned in 27001. And 27001 is also going through amendment, but we are not sure when it will be released. I will talk about it later. And 27002 is a guidance document which is giving guideline to the organizations to implement the controls which have been required in 27001, how you can implement them, the options given in 27002, so that you can use this document to have an effective deployment of 27001 controls. But let me make it very clear once again. If you want to get certification, it will be done against 27001. There will be no certification against 27002 because it's a guideline document. Now, getting this idea very clear, now let's see the changes. Let's straight away come to the changes. there are a lot of changes, I must say, in 27002. Although it is delayed a bit, because the standards are revised in 5 to 7 years, so it is 9 years it took, but it is definitely an excellent outcome of the revision. That there are a number of things which have been added, number of things which were need to be amended because of the time period. A lot of development in the world in the ICT sector, especially in the information security and the cyber security. And I must say, in the last 2 years, since the COVID was there, it has been there has been number of new things developing up, and there was a big need to get an amended standard with very updated controls to be deployed by the organization in order to cope with the rising cyber security threats or information security threats. So the control layouts has been changed. The title of the standard has been amended. There is a new thing which a lot of terms and definitions have been amended and included into the standard. And of course, the controls have been revised, updated, merged, and splitted also. And a very important new thing which has been added, the part which I like the most, is the attributes about the controls. So I will talk about this later on. Now, if you see the first thing, the first change in the title, and that's a big change, I must say. It was called a code of practice. If you see on the right side of the screen, 2013 version, it calls Code of Practice for Information Security Controls, but now it is, and secondly, it was Information Technology Security Techniques, the initial title of the standard. But now it is called Information Security, Cyber Security, and Privacy Protection. That means this series now, 27001 series, is now covering, although it was already covering all these aspects, now it has been very clearly laid out in the title. And information security, I am sure you are very well aware, is covering everything. Cyber security is also part of it. Physical security is also part of it. Human resource security is also part of it. So these days, I know a lot of people mix up with cyber security and information security. So just to summarize, the information security is the overall security of everything which is being done by an organization covering the cyber security and the privacy. Then the terms and definitions, as I said, if you see that there is a change, that the purposes of the terms and definition, this is being given. And it was initially, in the previous version, it was referring to ISO 27000. And I hope you are aware that 27000 is a series of standards. There are a number of standards in this series, out of which 27000 is the standard which defines the vocabulary and the definitions and the brief description about different other standards. So that is one is in 27000. And then we have 27001, of course, and 27002, and then there are a number of other standards. So if you see there is a links, there are 2 links given for the definitions, and you can even go to those links and see from the ISO website or Electropedia where these definitions can be found, and they are being more standardized. So this is another major change in the format. Now, controls layout, as you can see, you will see the title of the control. Then I will talk about a little bit more in detail in the next slides about the attributes. You will see this rectangular column. There are 5 types of attributes which have been added. Then the control itself, the organization should establish and maintain contact with the relevant authority. This is the control. Then the purpose of this control. And next is the guideline, that how you can implement this control. What are the options? What you can do with this control to implement it. And then other detailed information is given, some references is given, and might be some links also being provided in different guideline control, guidance to the controls. So this is the overall layout which you will see in the standard as a control layout. Now, directly jumping into the controls. So how many controls now? you can see in 27,002 2013 version, there were 114 controls, and now it is 93. So the question comes to our mind, oh, might be certain controls have been removed. So let me make a statement very clear. Not a single control has been removed. I repeat, not a single control has been removed. Many controls have been merged. And to be very specific, 57 controls have been merged into 24, which you can see. And there are 23 controls which have been renamed so that they are more clearer, they are more up to the mark, more to the current situation. Just to give you an example, the teleworking was one of the control, and now it has been renamed as remote working. And that's very much specific in the COVID situation. We all have seen how much remote working is now required and needed. Everyone has gone through this exercise. So that is an excellent update. Then 11 new controls have been added, which are reflecting the current scenario, like threat intelligence or data leakage prevention. So these are ICT readiness for business continuity. So these are the new controls which have been added. Cloud security. So that is something which was needed, and that has been added. So 93 doesn't mean that its controls are deleted. They are just simplifying it, merging them, making more sense, and making more clarity. I will show you how it is done in the next slides. First of all, the control categories. If you see 2013 version, there were 14 control categories, starting from 5 to 18. And every control category is, let's say, is physical and environmental security as an example. Then there was the first objective section was 11.1 secure areas. And below secure areas, there were a number of controls which you can use to deploy secure areas. That is one of the 11.1.1 is talking about physical security perimeter. So similarly, there were a number of controls down the line. But now it has been simplified. This was very complex. I know myself, auditing against this standard since 2003, 2004, it was, at that time, it was 17799, or it was the British standard BS 7799. So it was a confusion since then. And 2005 version and 2013 version had to carry over for a while in the same domains or the sections, whatever you call it. But now it has been simplified. It has been more specific. Like there are 4 sections or the 4 domains, and these domains have a number of controls. Like if you see organizational level controls, if you want to deploy and see what are the organizational level controls which needs to be there. And some are people controls, means human resource controls, then physical controls, and then of course the technological controls. And there is another thing which you can use or you can utilize in this control categorization, is that you can even see which department in your organization can deploy or shall be responsible for certain level of controls. Like for example, the people controls can be seen completely by the HR or admin, whatever the arrangement in your organization. And technological controls definitely will be more specific to the IT department or your information security teams or your security operations center or network operations center, whatever you call it. So, and similarly, physical security is mostly seen by the physical security department, administration department, or you call security department. But organizational levels will be overall, the policies, the procedures which sets out in the organization. So that's an excellent, I would say, categorization, making it easier for adoption and making it more clearer for deployment. Now, what are the new 11 controls? Let's start with the new ones. There are some in the organizational level, 3 controls, physical security, and technological controls. So more are in the technological controls. If I just give you an example of physical controls, I remember when we started auditing against the standard, there were a number of physical security controls, but not very specifically saying that you should do physical security monitoring in a way that you compare your CCTV recording with the, if you are having number of controls deployed for physical entry into the data center, like CCTV, then you have a register for logging who is entering for what purpose, then you might have a biometric, you might have the smart cards. All these controls needs to be mapped in such a way, to audit in such a way that who entered at what time and how many people entered while showing the smart card into the door. So that was a missing thing, although it was taken as a whole that monitoring should be done, but that control was not specifically mentioning this. So this is an excellent addition. Similarly, I can see data leakage prevention. I remember in 2011, this DLP concept emerged. A lot of companies brought out new tools. And I know many companies already have these tools, and so it is nothing new for them. But this control was not specifically mentioned, so it is now there. Similarly, web filtering or data masking. Configuration management is a very important control, which I think should have been there. So it is very much mapping with many other ICT standards like ISO 20000. So it will give a more clearer integration with those standards. Cloud security, and the second, cloud services are being much used during the COVID. So it's very much pertinent in the current situation. Similarly, 5.30 ICT readiness for business continuity. There is a standard, if most of you might be familiar, 27031, which is a guideline standard for ICT readiness for business continuity. So you already have a business continuity standard to be certified, that is 22301. So you can use this standard as a guideline to deploy the ICT readiness for business continuity. And this has now been included as a control within the 27001. So all in all, these are the 11 excellent controls which have been added. Now, what are the renamed controls? If you can see, very what you call excellently numbered and renamed. Like if you say network controls, A1311, and it has been renamed as network security, right? And then some minor changes in the wording, like segregation in networks has been changed to what you call segregation of networks. So that's making it more clear. Secure development policy of the software, it has been renamed as secure development lifecycle. So you can see that this is very clearly giving them more what you call meaning to this kind of controls. And obviously teleworking, you can see remote working. So it's an excellent, I would say, renaming, and I highly recommend the organizations to go through it, even though there will be a time for transition and everything. I have been receiving a lot of questions from different sources about different controls during this previous 16, 17 years. So now I think I have gone through the document in detail. It's an excellent revision. Then how many controls have been merged? As I said, there are 24 new merged controls, which you can see. Some of them are displayed on the screen, and you can, if I take an example of, let's say, access rights, 5.18 on the right side, it has covered 3 controls of the previous version: user access provisioning, review of user access rights, and removal or adjustments of access rights. When somebody is moving from one department to the other department, you have to adjust, or somebody is leaving the organization. So these kind of controls, they have almost, if you see 925 and 926, there seems to be very similar. And so that's why there were a confusion and some kind of mix up in understanding. So it has been merged into give access rights, one control. Similarly, acceptable use of information and other associated assets, it has a new name. This is the new name, and it has merged acceptable use of assets 813 and handling of assets 823. So definitely we can't go in detail of these controls. Our training courses will be coming up, inshallah, in very near future. So you can come and attend them and see how they work. So all in all, you can see no control has been deleted, but it has been merged or renamed in such a way to give a very specific and clear meaning. Please keep on typing your questions into the Q&A box. We will definitely try to answer. I will try to quickly go through the presentation so that we have more time for the panel discussion to answer more of your questions, so that you have more clarity in what we have discussed. And a very big change, I must say. This is something which almost a paradigm shift, I would say, that if you see in the previous version, the word objective, control objective was mentioned, but now it has been replaced with the purpose, more clear. The word purpose is more clear. Why this control is there, why this control is needed. So that is called purpose. So if you read out to like compliance with legal and contractual requirements, the objective is to avoid breaches of legal, statutory, regulatory, and contractual obligations related to information security and any other information security requirements. And now the purpose is to enhance the compliance with legal, statutory, regulatory, contractual requirements related to information security. Very straightforward, very clear. Now, this is something which is the best I like in the standard, is this change, because I remember when we started teaching this standard, conducting training back in 2004, 5, there was an exercise we did that which control is preventive, detective, or corrective. So that was something which needs to be very clearly understood, that which control you can deploy as a preventive control, and which control is just giving you the corrective action to be taken if something has happened, and which control can detect the things while they are in operations against you. Somebody is intruding into your organization through their network, so it's your detection control must try to detect it in time so that you can take immediate remedial actions. So this categorization is now available on top in this rectangular table against all the controls. It will give not only the control type in preventive, corrective, detective. It also gives you whether this control is applicable as to protect the three things in the information. And information security is all about preservation of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So it will tell you whether this control will protect in confidentiality, availability, or integrity. Then cybersecurity concept has been taken from the NIST guideline, NIST standard, which talks about the cybersecurity response. Whenever there is an attack, you identify it, protect it, respond it, and recover yourself. So these four categories are also being implemented or defined against each control. And some controls, organization level controls like contact with authorities, will cover all of these. Then operational capabilities, whether it's a governance or it's a management control. And finally, a long list of security domain, to which security domain this control relates to. So you can have whether it's a defense, it's a resilience, or which domain it belongs to. So that's a very good rectangle which gives you in the deployment, and you can easily see which control to be seen as a detective, preventive, corrective. And I want to protect my confidentiality. So whether this control will help me in that, or it only covers the integrity of the overall information. So this is something you can easily bifurcate. But one thing I would like to make a note here, that this is not mandatory. This is something, and overall, this standard is not mandatory. It is a guideline standard. So it gives you the option to deploy the controls. You can take any help from other standards like COBIT or ITIL or any other framework to deploy certain controls. So this use of attribute is not mandatory. Now let's jump on to 27001, how it is going to be amended. As far as the current information we have, it has been said that the main portion of the standard, which starts from clause 4 to clause 10, which talks about the general requirements of a management system. And over here, it's information security management system. And most of you might be familiar that most of the standards right now, a management system standard, I would say ISO 9001, ISO 14001, or 22301 for business continuity, and of course 27001. Now they have the same structure, the Annex SL structure. So this you can see that the structure will be the same. The clause 4 to 10 will remain mostly the same as far as the current information. Might be some minor adjustment or changes will be coming up. But overall, the major change is coming into the Annex A, which is a mandatory, what you call annex, which also says requirements and the controls. That will definitely be amended, and it will be 100% what you call the reflection of 27002 93 controls as it is mentioned. The only major difference you will see, not the only, it's a major difference, that the word used in 27002 is should, but the word which you will be seeing in 27001 is shall, that mandatory things. So, but we will see that which control are applicable to my organization, and if it is not applicable, you have the full right to give the justification and exclude that control. And that is, we do it in the statement of applicability, as most of you will be familiar. So the point to be mentioned on this slide is we are not expecting a major change in the general section of the management standard, part of the standard, but the Annex A will definitely be revised. And there is a draft amendment of the 27001 which is circulating, and we just got a copy of it, and we have displayed in front of you. And you can see, as I said, the wording used is a shall. Like segregation of duties, 5A5.3 is conflicting duties and areas of responsibilities shall be segregated. But if you go to 27002, this word will be should. That means it is a guideline. It's not mandatory, but here it is mandatory. So, and we are expecting by June, July, or somewhere, this process will complete, and there is a complete process of ISO standard passing through from the draft to the final draft, and then to the final international standard is released or amendment is released. We are not sure whether it will be released as an addendum or amendment, or it will be a revised new version with the revised sections. But this is the transition period. The question coming to your mind that what shall I be doing if I'm already certified? Or if you want to get certification, the question in your mind, which standard shall I follow? So I know these questions coming. So if you are already certified, no need to worry immediately. Whenever the standard is released, you might be experiencing it before. There is a transition period given to the organization to transit to the new version. It is mostly 2 years or 3 years at max. So that means you will be having 24 months or 36 months to transit to the new version. Now, what is the timeline which we are expecting as just, it's an idea that you see, that we can see that IEF is the International Accreditation Forum, which issues the guidelines for the transition period, and all the accreditation bodies, which accredited all the certification bodies operating in worldwide. Whenever they conduct the audits against any standard, they follow the guidelines from the accreditation bodies, which like UCAS, and accreditation bodies are following the guidelines issued by International Accreditation Forum, IAF. So this is the complete ecosystem, and that system works in a way whenever the ISO is only the standard releasing body, but the schemes of certification are being launched by IAF, and then go to the accreditation bodies, and then go to the what you call certification bodies to be followed. So we are expecting 27,001 somewhere in the Q1 in 2023, or might be earlier than that, but it is not clearly been coming out from the accreditation bodies. But again, to emphasize, if you are already certified, you have the transition time. But if you are thinking of going for a new the certification, so you can use 27,002 as the controls to be selected, and you can use 27,001, the main portion of the 4 to 10 clauses to be deployed. So that will give you a good mix-up. But even if you want 27,001, 2013 to be deployed, it's your choice. But you can select the controls from 27,002 because they will be reflected in Annex A of the 27,001 by any means. Now, some tips, what shall I do if I want to transit? First, the most important thing is review your risk assessment, update your risk treatment plan with the new controls, or might be, you might revise the name of the controls which you have selected. Definitely, if you talk about information transfer controls, so you already have those controls. So definitely, you don't need to change anything, only you have to reflect it in your documents, plus you have to update your SOA after you review your risk assessment. Might be certain new controls will be helping out to be deployed against certain risks which were there, but you have lack of control or consider lack of control. By the way, one thing is to be very clear, SOA stands for Statement of Applicability, which the standard requires you to prepare against all the controls in the Annex A for the new version 93 controls, and you have to provide the justification for inclusion, and also if you want to exclude certain controls, and you can justify them by giving a proper justification, and then you can exclude those controls. Like if you are not using any kind of encryption or cryptography, so you can easily exclude that control by giving the reason that we are not involved or we are not using anywhere in encryption or cryptography. So, but all in all, 93 controls has to be clearly laid out, in or out, whether they are applicable or not applicable. Plus, if you see 613 clause of the standard, it clearly says that SOA controls are on a list so that you are not missing any important controls. Plus, it has given you the leverage that you can add many other controls from other frameworks. So it's not a complete exhaustive list, but minimum list which needs to be followed. And then after you update your SOA, you need to revise your policies and procedures in order to reflect the new controls inclusion into those. Finally, I just give you an idea that in 27,000 series, there are more than 30 to 35 around standards. Some standards which are generic, which are general, which is talking about information security overall, like 27,001 and 27,002. Then we have 27,011. This is a standard for information security, deployment of information security standard, or 27,001 in a telecom industry. So that means some additional controls have been laid out in 27,001, which can help you out to mitigate the risk in a telecom. Similarly, we have 27,017, which is talking about the additional controls to the cloud environment. security in the cloud. And 27018 is specifying additional controls to 27001 for the privacy in the public cloud, to lay out the protection of PI in the public cloud. So all these standards are extension to the 27001. But the main thing is you must have 27001 certification based on that, you can add on these specific standards on that particular scope of certification. Similarly, we got 27701, which talks about privacy information management system. It was released in 2019, which is very specific to the protection of the PI by the PI processor or the organization which are basically trying to protect or using or gathering data from different individuals as a private data. So, but if you see 27018 is specifying the protection of the PI in the cloud, and overall privacy in an organization is being covered in 27701. So might be these standards, 27018 might not be revised because we have got a bigger picture of privacy in 27701. By the way, let me tell you that 27701 is going to be a separate certifiable standard, but again, you need to have the base controls in 27001 in order to get 27701 certification. So all in all, just to summarize, these standards are specific, but they are extension to 27001. You need to get 27001 certification in order to add on these specific extension certifications. Okay, finally, just to get you the very quick question from answer from your side, question from my side and answer from your side. A typical 27001 training course and has been not covering much of 27002 details. And 27002, you know, it's a 180-page standard, so it's a huge details given and about all the controls. So what do you think? We need your opinion so that we can try to formulate a course on that. And not many courses in the world in 27002. Do you think we should have a standalone course, or we should cover in more detail in the current courses, that is 27001? Or it doesn't make any difference to you, or you don't need to cover 27002? So I'll leave it to you. I'll give you time to respond, please. We are getting some good percentage now. Last 10 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let's see the results. It's a similar result we saw in the morning, almost, in the first webinar we did in the morning. We have got the people want 27002 to be more covered in 27001 course, but definitely a handsome percentage of the people wants a standalone course also. So we will definitely give this feedback to the training organizations and also to our training staff. So thank you very much for your time, and I am handing the floor back to Paula for your question and answers. So we have almost 16, 17 minutes, so it's ample time for you to ask questions. Over to you, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal, for this excellent presentation. I'm sure that this raised other questions that you probably have not think about it yet. So please feel free, as I've mentioned, to pop in your questions. If we don't have time to to reply to all of them, we'll do that by email. We'll give you our contact at the end. And let's start maybe for one of the first questions that we can divide into. Maybe Willie will be able to help us here. And this question is related with the impact of COVID and the way that we are now working with remote working. And so how to implement all these new controls, all these recommendations in a distributed environment when there's a small office, a small headquarter with top management, HR and IT support, and everything else, all the operations are done in different locations, working from home. So how to implement all these, and at the same time, how to ensure that the physical security controls are in place, are controlled, and is it possible to make sure that the entire organization is in scope of our certificate when we just have probably one address, one location, and not all the locations where the operations are being conducted? Willie, to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paula. I think this is a very, very important question indeed. And sorry to say, it has really nothing to do with the update to 27001-2. This question is also applicable today with the, let's say, old standard or to be updated standard. At the end of the day, nobody says that all controls in the Annex A must be implemented. As Faisal mentioned, what is required is that in the statement of applicability, there is a clear description whether a particular control is implemented or not, and in both cases, the justification thereof. So if you have no need to implement cryptographic controls for whatever reason, yes, the statement of applicability needs to refer to cryptographic controls, but then the justification needs to be clear why the organization is not implementing those controls. And the same would be true for physical security controls at employees' home offices. You know, from an auditing point of view, from a standard point of view, there's really no difference whether your employee is working at Starbucks or whether that person is working in a living room in his or her home. The question is not related to physical security as in cameras and parameter control, but the question is related to what kind of risk does it pose if somebody is working in a particular location. And if you have suitable controls, that is what we are looking for. If you have suitable and adequate justification for implementation or not implementation of a particular control, that is what we are looking for. For example, if you're not doing software development, why would you include controls related to lifecycle management? It doesn't make sense, right? And the same philosophy would apply for physical security and organization with a distributed workforce. I hope this answers the question. Back to you, Paula.
Thank you so much, Willie. I've got a question that I think I've heard a lot of time also. In the situation, the question is, we are a startup, we are planning to implement 27.1. Should we wait until the 27.01 is amended, or should we go just now with the current version. Maybe Chris?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, gladly to answer these questions. Well, it really depends on whether you are ready for certifications yet. Well, like Faisal said, the 27001 is not published yet. And by the time it is published, it might be the June, July timeframe. And also, like Faisal mentioned earlier, the CB also needs to be approved by the accreditation body first to audit against the new version. So there will also be some time lag after the standard is published. So the earliest that any CB is ready to audit you against the new standard would be earliest, I suspect, would be around the September, October timeframe. That is a very optimistic assumption. So it depends on whether you have started preparing for 27,000 or not. It takes, from our experience, it takes a good 9 months to get it prepared, to write all the policies and procedures, and then to do internal audits, and so on. So if you haven't started right now, and by the time you finished setting up the system, the CBs probably are ready already. So I would say it is a good idea to do it against the new standard if you haven't started now. But if you have already started it, and you're in the middle of setting up the system, and you probably are ready next month or so, and then also depends on how eager you want to get certified. If you need to get certified for a tender or for a contract, then you might want to do the current version first, and then maybe do an upgrade next year or so during the surveillance audit. But if you are not in a hurry to get certified, you might want to wait until the standard is ready, or if you have already started, then you might also start maybe revising your procedures or reviewing your SOA and risk assessment to make sure your system adapts to the new version. So this is how I would approach the problem. So I hope that answers your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Now a question a little bit more technical. As Faisal mentioned, 2702 has changes in terms of definitions that will obviously have an impact on how to read every control purpose and control text. Faisal, do you think that ISO 27001 will also change its definitions in the clause that mentioned those definitions?
Purpose and what I got it correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, that they are talking about purpose and objective. Am I right?
Yes, I think it's about the control purpose and the control text. That again, because those definitions have changed, how it will impact 27.
Yeah, to be honest, and not much impact overall, because the purpose is, or the objective which were given, just to give you an idea where this control can be deployed against what type of risks you can deploy that control. Instead of just giving the list, they have given you the purpose, that what is the purpose of this control. So when you read the text, as I showed you in the example, that the purpose is that you can avoid any kind or enhance your compliance to the legal, regulatory, statutory requirements. That gives you an idea that whenever it talks about, whenever you are putting up a control again for the legal requirements to be fulfilled, so you can easily go into this control and select it. So it gives you an idea. But definitely, currently, if you have control objectives, and similarly, you have the new controls, so you can compare, might be some adjustment in your, what you call in your SOA, and in terms of your risks, which have been related to that control. So it will not be a much difference, I would say, but definitely it gives you a better idea at the current situation, how to handle the control and where to deploy it. I hope the answer is correct.
Yeah, thank you. And an interesting question here, maybe Willie. Would it be a good idea to issue a new edition of ISO 27001 and then have a 3-year transition period as normal with transitions usually?
Paula, thank you very much. Yes, short answer is yes. So as you, Paula, earlier mentioned, I'm representing the IIOC at the ISO committees, but I'm also a liaison between the IIOC and the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum. And the IAF had a pre-draft document floating around talking about a transition period of just 2 years. And we believe actually that the traditional 3 years transition period is a better approach, not just because it's tradition, but when, I don't want to put myself onto a pedestal, but 25 plus years in third-party auditing, I've been through a couple of transitions during that time. And I do know that there is not just a change in the standard, there's also a change in the supporting software. There is a change in the management system of the organization. There's a change at the certification bodies in terms of updating, revising our procedures and processes, training our auditors. And last but not least, sorry to say, the accreditation bodies also need to be ready. So when we take that all into account, the first year is pretty much done. And if we really have only a transition period of 2 years, that seems to be a little bit too aggressive. That was the reason why we believe that 3 years is indeed the better approach. But for all intents and purposes, we can't really say yet because we are waiting. First, the most important thing, the release of the addendum to the standard, respectively the revision of the standard, which might come at a later time, and then the requirements set out by the IAF and then conveyed via the accreditation bodies to the certification bodies. So short answer, that would be great. Let's hope for the best, but don't really know yet.
And a little bit in continuation of this question, really, for a company that is already certified, what should they be doing now? What will be the best approach, considering that the transition period will probably be less? Where should they start?
My suggestion would be do nothing at the moment. Yes, get a copy of the new ISO IEC 27002. Yes, study the controls, familiarize yourself, attend webinars, understand the changes. But at the end of the day, ISO 27001 has not been amended, nor has been revised yet. And as Faisal said correctly, we do expect an amendment still Q2, but this is more based on rumors and grapevine. There is no official statement out there. But once that standard has been either amended or revised, then we do know what is the situation, and then we do know most likely what the transition period will be. But for the time being, there's nothing you or we can really do other than studying the 27002 and familiarize ourselves with the controls.
Good, thank you. I think we've got time for one last question. As Faisal also mentioned, there's a lot of standards that have 27001 as based, and so what will be the impact of this revision on other standards as 27017, 18, 27701? What should be people expecting regarding those standards? Maybe Faisal?
Yeah, Excellent question. And definitely, as I mentioned, that although the standards are revised after a certain period of time, as 27,017 and 27,018, these are talking about security in the cloud and privacy in the cloud, respectively. So, as I mentioned, 27,017 might go through a change or might not go through a change, because these are additional controls. These are additional guidelines given that when you are deploying 27,001 in a cloud environment, what additional measures or what additional controls you need to put in place. So it will take time. It will take to realize and to bring about additional controls in the cloud environment. I know these days a lot of new things in development in the cloud side. So definitely I expect 27,017 to be revised, but when it will take time, number one. Then 27,018 is talking about the privacy in the cloud, which is, I said, we have got a bigger picture, a bigger standard that is talking about overall privacy information management system, that is 27701. So I think I feel that 27,018 might not be revised, rather it will be referring to 27,701. So similarly, we know that 27,011, that is the 27,001 deployment in the telecom, is being revised. With last version one is 2016, and we might expect a new version in 2023 or 2024. So it depends. It all depends. But as far as I would clearly say that since the environment is changing, it's so volatile these days, especially after the COVID. As you might have seen, the digitalization has been 1,000 times faster. So the organizations are going digital, and this digitalization bringing new cyber threats or information security threats. So that means in the long run, the standard has to be revised to cope with the current situation. I hope it's answered the question.
Thank you so much. Yes, Faisal. We obviously run out of time. Thank you all our speakers. Thank you for all our attendees. And let's just remind you that this webinar has been recorded, and everyone that has attended or registered can see it on demand. And we also have a white paper that you can download with a little bit more about what we discussed here today.
Paula, just last point, just to some people have been asking about the controls, and we saw the slide which talk about the correspondence or the merging of the controls. So you can refer to Annex B, Annexure B of the standard, which is the new annexure, which gives a complete mapping of 27,001 or 27,002, 2013, and 22 version of the standards. So it gives you a very good mapping over there. Thank you.
And yeah, so just summarize, as I mentioned, we will make this webinar available on demand. We'll have a white paper available for you, and all the questions that we were not able to answer, we'll be answering it by email. We also have got our social media contacts. Please be free to ask our questions. We really hope that you have enjoyed this session, that it's been useful for you, and I'm sure that we'll come back soon with more on this. That still, again, we are in the starting point of what would be probably a journey for 27,001. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone.